Time to figure out what's happening with Hogwarts Legacy.
Let's get started. So for those of you that are not aware, developers Avalanche Software started teasing new content being added to Hogwarts Legacy following very loud requests for a paid expansion. Hogwarts Legacy sold tens of millions of copies and has a massive following, so naturally news of a potential expansion kind of spread around the internet like wildfire, and it's gotten to the point where Avalanche Software can no longer ignore it. But luckily they announced a summer update that new content would be added to the game, and then earlier this month the community manager made some posts on
Now this is a tricky situation considering Disney's involvement and whatnot, because, well, Disney is not a big fan of Hogwarts Legacy just actually, you know, selling so well, and then after everything bombs, so, especially Suicide Squad killed Justice League, right? So, how is this gonna work? Because Disney doesn't like the idea that, hey, wait a minute, we can just get these giant sales spikes, because that means that everything else they do is bad. Because I don't think that it exists such a thing as superhero fatigue, Harry Potter fatigue, or whatever kind of magical fatigue. It's just that the products you release are shit. And those are excuses. That's it at the end of the day.
Twitter to kind of set expectations and what we should all expect going into the summer. To which they said, "Hi everyone, we are thrilled that you are all excited for the free update to Hogwarts Legacy this summer. We love seeing all of the guesses and hopes for what could be a part of this update. And while we're not ready to talk about it yet, I do want to set expectations for what we are working on. Our original wording of additional updates and features for the game was very intentional. This update was a small way of us showing appreciation to our players for the amazing reception to the game." To which that wording of quote unquote small was also intentionally put, but we'll talk about that in a sec. While it's nice to have some clarity on what we should be expecting for Hogwarts Legacy going into 2024, I think
a Professor Garlic swimsuit mod. That's what we need.
speak for everyone when I say that this update seems almost deliberately worded to make sure that people's expectations weren't very high for this update. The summer update is not going to be a paid expansion, it's a free update, so it's as simple as that. Now, despite there being a ton of story possibilities and gameplay improvements that could be added with a paid DLC, it doesn't seem like Avalanche has any plans to release a paid DLC, at least not at this moment. But also, we have to be realistic about this. If a DLC isn't in the works right now, it never will be, because at this point Avalanche has started work on the next game in the series, and they probably want to save all of their new ideas for that while also getting as much of the...
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And a follow-up game would actually make a lot more sense than DLC on a, I guess, shitty business side of things. But a DLC for this, I mean, people would buy it like wildfire. It is what it is. Best-selling game of 2023. Hey, as I have stated before, Harry Potter is ginormous. It's bigger than all of your shitty Call of Duties and Fortnites combined, okay? It is what it is. There is literally multiple generations that grew up reading Harry Potter books and watching the movies and whatnot. That thing is massive. There's a reason J.K. Rowling is a billionaire at the end of the day.
The team focused on it as possible, which simply couldn't happen if there was a team working on DLC for Hogwarts Legacy 1. It's for all of those reasons that I firmly believe that if we don't get a paid DLC announcement this summer after the summer update releases, it's just not going to happen at all. And now that Hogwarts Legacy's community manager is telling us to manage our expectations for future updates, it's really starting to look like our hopes of a paid expansion are officially just pure copium. Now, as for what the summer update will include, I'm just expecting it to be a smaller update with the addition of possibly some new spells, maybe a handful of map locations.
Damn it, that old hag. What the hell is she doing? That's that's invasion of personal space. That's an attack. There, self-defense. Self-defense.
Map locations, a possible side quest as it relates to Fantastic Beasts, but we should not expect anything massive or mind-blowing. Maybe they'll put something in to kind of tease us for the future game, which honestly I would love that. That would be plenty enough to hold me over until the next game. Like, just give us a breadcrumb or like an Easter egg that we could speculate on for the future of the series. Honestly, with the word quote-unquote small being used, it kind of has me thinking that the community really shouldn't be looking forward to this update whatsoever. My guess is they're going to do some further optimization.
Oh, the dreams. Remember when we had big dreams about expansion and blah, blah, blah? Shortcuts. Joking, but you know.
Maybe some quality of life updates, and then possibly just a photo mode, and that's about it. If we get something like a new game plus, that would be mind-blowing, and I would love that. Now, another piece of Hogwarts Legacy news that came out earlier this month that had the entire community kind of losing their mind about the future of Hogwarts Legacy. Well, apparently WB is looking to focus less on single-player content going forward and more on live service type games.
Oh, damn, I expected this. I wanted to actually say about this because the reality is there have been a lot of mobile games that are just money milks for Harry Potter. They had a mobile game where it's your typical mobile game, and one of the mechanics in that game was you got grabbed by the Dark Vine or whatever it's called. You know, the one that you saw in the first movie, I think, in the Chamber of Secrets. That Devil's Snare. There we go. I remember the name, and you could get out of it by paying real life money. Yeah. I mean, they had those games, and I'm assuming they did not succeed at all. I'm assuming they failed tremendously. Because the one thing that didn't make sense to me is the fact that there's not that many microtransactions embedded in Hogwarts Legacy. You'd think they would try to milk it more, but the reality is, now we know that, yeah, they definitely did not expect this to be such a ginormous hit. They probably thought it's gonna sell a bunch of copies and, acquire a stable audience and whatnot, maybe something like that. But man, it completely shattered expectations. And if you add microtransactions, heavy microtransactions, maybe even the good old pay-to-win style features, in the next game, even if only 50% of the people who bought it the first time buy it because it's microtransaction hell, you still probably make 10 times more money than you did previously, because that's just how these things work.
Which makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, you have Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, and it was a huge financial disappointment. And then you have Gotham Knights, which I personally enjoyed the story, but the gameplay just wasn't good enough. Both of which were intended to be long-term games that got tons of free updates and kept the player grinding XP. Both games, of course, massively underperformed, while other Warner Brothers games like Hogwarts Legacy absolutely dominated. So this left a lot of people...
Oh, but was I saying Disney all the time? Yes, Warner Brothers, excuse me.
Kind of naturally confused as to why
enough.
Warner Brothers is deciding to focus more on the strategy that has kind of failed them consistently over the one that's repeatable and works well. But I think there's a...
Because it involves less risk. That's pretty much it. The thing that people don't understand is when you have money, money naturally grows, okay? When you don't have money, money doesn't grow. But when you have money, money grows. And it's because of the most simple thing in, well, all of our existence, I guess you could say to a degree. And that's the fact, if you have a lot of money, you can simply wait. And if you are waiting in any form and the money's just not sitting in your bank, it's growing. Either way, it's somehow magically doing it. It's growing. So, it is what it is.
Pretty reasonable explanation, at least if you look at this from the perspective of the Warner Brothers executives. So kind of from the top down, video games are a variable investment because it's almost impossible to determine just how profitable a video game is going to be prior to launch. Video games are getting more expensive despite games like Helldivers and Palworld completely dominating sales charts. But as you all know, just because you put a lot of money into something doesn't mean you're going to make it back. I'll just go ahead and say a high five to Skull and Bones. Some games are extremely expensive to develop, like a GTA game, and they sell really well, but because of the massive budget, they don't usually make profit, obviously excluding games from Rockstar Games and Call of Duty.
What do you mean? If GTA didn't make a profit, GTA would not exist. GTA is making so much money, it's not even funny. They're like the third Fed. The first Fed is obviously Google, the second Fed is the Federal Reserve in America, and the third Fed is probably GTA Online at this point. Those shortcuts, sells like butter, boys. Okay? Maybe, and also just their basic sales numbers for GTA 4, weren't they absolutely eclipsing? So, it's not that GTA is making money, okay?
Hogwarts Legacy sold over 24 million copies, but once somebody buys a copy of that game, the transaction is over. However, other games like Suicide Squad and Gotham Knights, in theory, could have made money infinitely. They could have literally just printed money, because after the player buys a copy for $70 and they keep playing it and putting money into the microtransactions and possible expansion packs, it effectively turns into a money printer. If you're looking at the gaming industry from the top down, you probably noticed that single player games don't make nearly as much money over a long period of time like live service games do. Making live service games are usually the safer investment, since they also generally don't take as much time to develop. They can essentially get the game in a playable state, release it completely unfinished and broken, and just develop the game over time rather than having it done in a complete experience the first time. Games as a service are also held to a lower graphical standard and thus have lower budgets. Warner Brothers knows that a game like Hogwarts Legacy are an exception to the rule, and even though that game was very expensive and very profitable, it shouldn't be the company's standard expectation for new releases, because they would effectively go broke. And with Warner Brothers currently in a bit of a financial pickle due to the laundry list of
That's funny.
expensive failures over the last few years, I can absolutely understand why WB executives are ignoring the potential for a runaway
All of their movies have flopped so hard.
single-player success stories like Hogwarts Legacy and are instead playing it safe with cheaper projects with a more predictable profit margin.
Hogwarts Legacies wasn't even that expensive considering everything, I think. Now, was it?
Now, how is this going to affect the legacy of Hogwarts Legacy 2? Well, there's a few ways, but overall, I just don't think it's going to affect it that much. Hogwarts Legacy 1 was a runaway success, and it's been reported that a sequel has already been greenlit. And even though Warner Brothers is looking to operate a bit more cheaply and less dependent on making good single-player games, they also know that not making a sequel to the best-selling game of 2023 would really be a bad decision, because the install base is already massive. So I wouldn't worry too much about the recent reports of Warner Brothers strategies scare you into thinking that we're not going to get Hogwarts Legacy 2, because I do believe we will. Warner Brothers may be desperate for profits, but they even know how much money Hogwarts Legacy 2 will make regardless.
They are gonna make it and add microtransactions. I'm assuming they're actually quite rushing it a bit at this point, because again, stable income is the name of the game, because they can wait.
Regardless of its budget, and they're not going to skip out on that. One way to look at things is that Warner Brothers isn't going to walk away from single player games entirely. They're just going to fund them less frequently than they're currently doing, which is already not much by AAA game publisher standards. There will still likely be about 5 or so live service games for every single player release by Warner Brothers. Now, some of the live service games will be—
Didn't they have that announcement or leaked thing that said, yeah, for every one non-microtransaction hell type of game that we're gonna do, we're gonna make 5 that are? I think it was Warner Brothers, or it was another studio. Now, I'm assuming every studio is pretty much looking in that direction, because again, safe, reasonably expected profits are safe, reasonably expected profits that everyone likes. Having the graph go like this and that, that's bad. That's called bad news.
Be like your Gotham Knights or your Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and have a story, but they're also going to have other multiplayer components and live service stuff. So don't think they're going to turn their back on offline single player games forever. Just don't expect them to come out as often as they might have been, which again was already not much. Their next major single player release will likely be Hogwarts Legacy 2 in terms of their big AAA games, and I'm really hoping they're considering some kind of return to form for Batman Arkham or Shadow of Mordor, because those would do amazing for mending the relationship
Really hard to say what's gonna happen with that.
Between WB.
I think the Batman games are a big question mark here because of Suicide Squad. Because you need to understand, the people at the top who decided that that's a good idea probably are thinking that, you know, a Batman game is the same as the Suicide Squad game. So, well, this one flopped so tremendously. Why wouldn't the Batman game yet again flop? It's just how they think.
In those who have been supporting all of their games. This also seemingly heightens the possibility that a Hogwarts Legacy 2 is going to have some kind of live service aspect to it, which I think could go one of two ways. It could possibly be something perfectly innocent, like cosmetic items that rotate every once in a while, but don't actually impact the gameplay, and are just—
Oh, it's gonna be the innocent, the middle innocent, the not innocent, and the bad. It's all gonna be there, okay? Microtransactions don't start with innocent. Look at Fallout 76. We're never gonna have we have microtransactions, but we're never gonna sell overselling power. But we're never gonna sell more overselling more power now. It is what it is, boys. It is what it is.
just a way for you to further customize your character, or perhaps there will be additional emotes that again are completely optional, but just give you a little bit more things if you want them. I think what would be really cool is if there was a better wand builder in the game that allowed you to fully customize it, have different skins and stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool. If Hogwarts Legacy 2 ends up having some kind of multiplayer component, I think an in-game item shop is all but guaranteed, and I imagine that there will be a bit of a split between the players who don't mind something like that and those who still think that it crosses the line entirely. I'm really hoping the WB shows.
Oh yeah, it's gonna cross the line entirely. That's like absolutely undoubtable at this point, I would honestly say. Hey, again, I don't think they well, they definitely didn't expect Hogwarts Legacies to perform this well, because this is an aberrant thing. Now, I did predict that it's gonna do extremely well, and I predicted that it's gonna be amongst did I say the top 3 or top 5 sellers? I don't remember, but I did not expect it to be the best seller and sell 20 million plus copies, because that's a little bit much and insane. So, it is what it is. They're gonna milk microtransactions off of this bad boy 100%. In any case, that was Best Nemo, 10 out of 10. This is Quizzer Sid saying thanks for watching, subscribe, haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.